Hello, folks. Welcome to this particular episode of the Political Napalm here on YouTube. Today, we're going to have a discussion that has been building up for at least a month now. And that is the right has been tripping over themselves since essentially the opening ceremony of the Olympics in trying to outdo each other on being the literal basket of deplorables that Hillary said back during her last presidential campaign. At the time, most mild political people believed that that comment was a bridge too far. Similar to Kathy Griffin's decapitated bloody Trump head, it was viewed as painting with too broad of a brush, dipping it back into the paint can and going right back to work, painting with the exact same broad brush. It was considered a little bit overboard, and while perhaps there were reactions on the more extreme ends of both sides of the political spectrum of people on the deep left believing it, people on the deep right getting very upset about it, I would say the middle of the bell curve was like, I may be left, I may be right, I may be centrist. I think this is a little too far. I think you went too far in this one. And I think we could argue the fact that that statement hurt her in the long run, as it was probably a little bit too strong. And for some time, reality and truth and the days and the weeks and the months and the years that went by after that statement did seem to back up that maybe that brushstroke was too broad, that she painted over the painter's tape with that one and painted around the corner and it got splashed everywhere. In recent months, maybe even as far back as saying the recent last year or so, that pushback has been diluted and been watered down. And that paint is beginning to ring perhaps more true than it ever did. Certainly this summer, that brushstroke is not broad anymore. It seems to be rather exact and on point. You had religious conservatives falling all over themselves to condemn the opening ceremony of the Olympics, where the Greek feast was displayed, and they considered it blasphemous against God because it portrayed the Last Supper with what they considered to be not normal people. When in fact what was being portrayed, and this is not a cognitive leap at all, but apparently it was too big of a leap for some people, it was a Greek feast. The Greek Olympics, Greek feast, seems to make a whole lot of sense, but they didn't think that. They just wanted to run with the outrage that it was an affront to God, an affront to religion, and it took a riff of the Last Supper, which had been riffed many times before. You've seen Trumpers post it with Jesus in the center, or with Trump in the center instead of Jesus. You have religious right-wing conservatives here in the States putting forth pictures of a softened, hazy light Jesus gently caressing Trump as he sits in the White House. That could conceivably be blasphemous, that a person of God, a person that close to God, would be laying a gentle, soothing hand on a man that embodies perhaps all of the 7 deadly sins in perfect shining examples, just not the least of which committing adultery coveting thy neighbor's wife. We could go on and on about the deadly sins, breaking the 10 Commandments, but suffice to say, he is one of the most unreligious presidents that we have had. A man who cannot quote a Bible verse when pushed, and deftly tried to dodge it. No matter how much the people interviewing him were trying to keep him on course, he kept sitting there trying to dodge it and trying to dodge it. Then he called into a conservative radio show once, and they asked him to lead them in the Lord's Prayer, to which he feigned audio issues and proceeded to talk anyway as if he didn't know that they could hear him. Here's the thing about that, and it's easy to prove. If you catch that video, he knows he can be heard. He hears them because there is the typical back and forth of human conversation where you speak, you wait for the reply, you get it, and you speak again. If you truly believed you were unsure if you could be heard, you would just simply be speaking, and you would not be pausing to hear anything. Seriously, watch that footage. He does have no audio issues whatsoever. And of course, we've all seen the Lafayette Square, how do I hold this Bible moment. He is so far and away not God's anointed candidate. Here in the States, he was believed to be God's anointed candidate thanks to Falwell Jr., whose life is in a complete shambles. He's a drunk. He's been fired. And he's a voyeur who watches his wife bang the pool boy. So that's where the setup was. That was the man who pitched Trump to the religious conservatives and the religious set instead of Hillary. And that was all Falwell Jr.'s doing. And you can see where it got him. His life is in a complete shambles. So then, after the opening ceremony brouhaha died down, and was it satanic when the Red Streamers came out, when Gojira was playing, when it was an ode to the French Revolution? You have the actual athlete controversy starting, and yet again, the right exposed themselves to be the heinous piles of crap that they can be at times when they went after one of our own female rugby players. Ilona, I believe is how the name is pronounced. She's tall, she's big, she's muscular. They, in a unpatriotic way, went after her so bad that she was crying on social media saying she did not understand what was happening and why were people acting this way, simply because she is of an athletic build, muscular and athletic. It's almost as if people forgot China from the WWF, now WWE, but then WWF, back in the early 2000s and late 90s. A woman who was often wrestling men, lighter weight men, held the Intercontinental Championship, which was typically held by men at the time, but then actually proceeded to go on and have her own Playboy issue. You take a look at Rhea Ripley now in the WWE, and she is tall and she is muscular and built. Where is the hate towards her? But no, and a U.S. Olympic female athlete, you cannot hold on to your patriotism hard enough to stop you from attacking that woman for looking the way that she does. And you think you hold the noose, the chokehold around patriotism, and you wield it as a weapon that patriotism and nationalism and Christian nationalism and religious nationalism is all on your side and everybody else is not a patriot. Well, I declare that supporting U.S. Olympic athletes is patriotic. Attacking them is not patriotic. You are a patriot when you support our team that is making us look good on the world stage and at these international Olympics. You don't sit there and reduce one of them to tears because you are so embroiled in LGBTQ panic and trans panic that you insult somebody who should be held up and glorified. Frankly, it's disgusting. And then you had the Algerian female boxer controversy, Iman, and the attacks on her for believing that she was male due to a disgraced Russian boxing organization report that came out after she had beaten a Russian boxer, and they have not revealed their testing methods, and they have not revealed the results on the sample. They just simply said she has male characteristics and not gone and proven it. They just put out the report and they just wing that out there. And this is after all this came to light, after she punched the female Italian boxer twice. The female Italian boxer gave up. She was incredibly low ranked. She was like 154. She was way outclassed in this one. You could see she's so much smaller of a person. And then when she realized all the controversy she created, she apologized. But it continued with people like Elon Musk and Donald Trump and J.K. Rowling going after her and continuing to go after her, even when the counter push was happening that she is female. She was born a female. She's a female today. She's a biological lady. She's in a country that is not supportive of LGBTQ people in any stretch of the imagination. And if you would be worldly enough to know that about Algeria, you wouldn't be saying this. But of course, nope, they persisted. And now she has been threatening a bit of a counteroffensive on that. And I hope she gets everything she goes for in that, because frankly, it is disgusting. It is one thing to make a mistake, be set right, maybe issue an apology, maybe take down what you said and back off. It is another thing to continue the assault. And the truth about Iman came out very, very quickly, but people still continue to do it. So you have everything about the Olympics, and now the big one has been Gus Walz, Tim Walz's son. At the DNC, Gus Walz stood up crying, visibly emotional, saying, "That's my dad. That's my dad." It takes but 2 seconds to see, and simply watching the video even at least twice, just a simple twice, you can tell likely he is neurodivergent. You can see his mom tugging him a little bit, which is anybody who's a parent knows it's a parental reaction to somebody who is usually a bit younger, and it's the casual prod of now, or easy, like settle down. It is the typical parental motion dedicated to somebody who is younger, or in Gus's case, somebody who is neurodivergent or on the spectrum. For one phrase, we know he has an anxiety disorder, a speaking disorder, is autistic. The truth is out there as to what Gus is and what he deals with. Regardless, even if he was not neurodivergent, if he cares about his father that much and is that emotional and that supportive and that proud of him, okay, so what? Or are we going to make fun of him because he's 17, right on the verge of adulthood, and he shouldn't be acting that way? Gus is on the campaign to become the vice president of the United States, and it is part of a hopeful and joyful, exuberant, energetic campaign. So even if he was not neurodivergent in any way, shape, or form, I see nothing wrong with it. Of course, the comparisons to Kyle Rittenhouse and his fake blow up on the stand when he was on trial were drawn. This is an outpouring of positive emotion, where if Kyle's was real, was simply maybe a release of everything that had built up after he was involved in that night that made him infamous. So regardless of what Gus is, it's rather pathetic to be attacking him for it, but especially when he is neurodivergent, it is an extra slice of the blade to go after him for it. And you have people like Mike Crispy and Dinesh D'Souza and Lily Gaddis from the coast here in North Carolina, out in Wilmington, who made herself famous a couple months ago by doing a recipe video and using the N word and I think a W word referring to Hispanics in her cooking video. And the hysterical thing is she worked for a healthcare company that took care of the elderly and disabled. Can you imagine somebody as foul and offensive as this tending to a grandparent in your family or an elderly parent in your family who's doing a cooking video that has nothing to do with people and everything to do with cooking and a recipe and ingredients and using the N word and the W word slur against Hispanic people? She was rightfully fired. You could say, well, that sounds like cancel culture, but if I was the company that employed her and people were coming after me saying, how do you support somebody with these terrible views? She would be terminated. And, it's funny because she thinks she's real hot crap here, when to me, she just basically looks like Marsha from the Brady Bunch after the football hit her in the head. But, that's just my opinion, man. So here's Dinesh D'Souza. The kid might have mental problems, but he's acting just like Tim Walz. So what's Walz's excuse? And he's reposting it from Proud Army Brat, who is one of the most terrible and misinformed accounts on Twitter. But Dinesh D'Souza of 2000 Mules book and movie fame, which has now been pulled from all print and all distribution, by the way. His book was pulled once before, and it had to be edited. There's two versions of the book out there because the first book included an incredible amount of defamation for which he was getting sued. So Dinesh D'Souza, the man who has cheated on wives and cried when people took his stream of the 2000 Mules from Mar-a-Lago and, put it on the internet for free and cried he wasn't getting paid for it. This actual scumbag does this. This man's life is in another total shambles after 2000 Mules was proven to have been debunked and pulled from shelves in every which way, shape, or form. And you can go on IMDb itself and find out all the lies of that movie, including the fact that they used an actor by the name of Jacob Hyman to make you think he was a mule when he was just acting. So, yeah, Dinesh D'Souza is a scumbag. I like to call him Dinesh the Felon. This is his take on it here. My crispy Tim Walz stupid crying son isn't the flex the left thinks it is. You raised your kid to be a puffy beta male. Congrats. Does Barron Trump cry? Nope. Does he love his father? Well, we don't know that. Him and Melania have not really been around Trump much, although Trump has now been dragging Barron everywhere since he's been 18. That's the types of values that I want leading the country. A nanny who is in a circle of nannies that did a certain group of people, which included the Trumps, has said that basically Barron has exhibited very clear signs of being psychopathic, including assaulting other kids and animals. It basically reads like a Law and Order SVU episode. I've actually seen one that is very, very close to what he's revealed about Barron Trump. And if you think, well, it sounds like fake news, he has a picture where he's got a group of kids, and Barron is one of them. He's heard the stories of the Barron nannies, and Barron is a bit of a psychopath. So yeah, I would take a crying neurodivergent child who was proud and emotional over his father than a Trump any day, especially, psychopathic Barron Trump. Before we move on to some other stuff, I want to show you what is going on Jeff Filios' page. The man known for lies, the man known for being anti-intellectuals, we've covered on this channel before, including one of the most egregious racist and anti-intellectual lies that he's ever done when he claimed a black teacher was smacking around a small white girl student when it was actually two students who were in a fight in a locker room. He posted a video on his page years ago, and he claimed that the two people involved were teacher-student and said, is this white privilege? Is this white privilege when this black teacher smacks around this student and no authorities are involved? All of that was lies. Literally every word of it was a lie, as authorities were involved. The police were involved. The principal was involved. Teachers were involved, and both sets of parents were involved. Also, it was not a teacher. It was a student, and you can hear in the video the students, the larger black student was saying, "How do you like it? Do you like it?" Now, in other words, retaliating against the white girl. And you look at the size difference, and you're like, political napalm. That doesn't sound right. It was revealed that the white girl had been picking on the black girl for some time, calling her slow, both physically and mentally. So, sort of attacking her intelligence, as we can see here, Gus Walz, and had pulled her, quote, ethnic styled hair several times. And the video was the black girl getting retaliation finally after having enough of the torture the smaller white girl had been putting her through for some time. He didn't link the video. He embedded the video in a post and didn't link the article because the article clearly explained that it was students and that the proper people were involved. But he just embedded the video and he set the context and he let his sheep run wild with comments of like, get a rope, gorilla, she needs to go back to her country. It looks like she's never missed a meal in her life. Food stamps does this to you. Horrible, horrible commentary on it, and it was so racist and vile, and very few people put out the corrections and said, you guys need to stop. This is two students, this is not a teacher. Most people did not back down from it. Some people knew the truth, and actually the really sad thing is some people that knew the truth are still on Jeff's page today, which I find really, really sad. You know that this person just lied to your face, and yet you're still going to continue to put stock in it. But I'm not blurring out these names by any stretch. You need to digest the full-on rawness of this thread over here. Jeff is trying to be good, to his credit, and said, the love which comes from one child is precious and most important love in the world. Gus loves his father. This is love and genuine, which is very true. Gus is like any politician's underage family. They are off limits. This is a precious moment to be thankful for, no matter the party affiliation. God bless the love of the child. So he's trying to be good. He's trying to rise above it all. And the great majority of the comments totally ignore him and don't rise above it whatsoever. As a matter of fact, when they go low, they go lower. Give that kid a tampon. Overdoing the drama much. Surely Gus has heard his dad say this before. You would think it was the first time ever. Give that kid an Oscar. We can fight, we can disagree, but we don't attack children. I remember a certain Barron being attacked by the media. So here's somebody trying to be good, like Jeff. However, Barron was not attacked by the media whatsoever when he was underage. There were some people who postulated that it looked like Barron was on the spectrum from this sort of 1,000-yard stare that he had, but he was never attacked. And anybody who could read knew that it was speculation. Bunch of radical leftist Democrats celebrating their own demise. So this is an attack on the child, but you're using a thread that is defending a child to go on the offensive. Unfortunately, their father has already shown just how evil he is. So again, Not about the not attacking the kid, but still using the thread to go on the offensive against Tim Walz. His son is overdoing the drama. Oh, well, you guys made fun of Trump's kid. No, he was not. Well, if he's over it, here, look at this. He is apparently R-word slur, just like what Lily did. You know, it wasn't bad enough when she was using N-word slurs, W-word slurs. Now she has to go and use this word against him. Let me clue you in on something a little bit here. If you were not able to guess, I'm Gen X. I'm not a boomer. I'm not a millennial or Z or anything younger than millennial. I am X. This word was absolutely part of our lexicon and common everyday language for many, many years. It started to fade out as an acceptable word quite some time ago. One of the things that it did it to me was a CSI episode, the original CSI series with Grissom. A kid with Down syndrome who worked as a cowboy on a ranch in this one particular episode was killed. He was killed by other ranch hands and cowboys. And at the end of the episode, Grissom says the word. He says this word. He's like, verb, to retard, to hold back. That's what your life is going to be when you're in jail. So he goes on the offensive for the usage of the word because the cowboy's like, but he was R-slur, blah, 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 blah. And as if it's a defense for the cowboy killing him, and Grissom claps back at him in a way that only Grissom could, which was glorious, for daytime TV prior to catching House and seeing House's clapbacks. But Grissom really got him on that. That's one of those moments that made me begin to realize that perhaps this word really needs to drop out of public speech. And it has. And nobody uses this word anymore. Jeff's general sheep over here are largely boomers. People older than me. People where this word was not really part of their day-to-day language to begin with. This is a very Gen X word. To be older than me and to be using this word publicly, Jeff's page is not private. You can just simply view it. You don't have to ask to join it. You don't get let in. You can just start following him. And to see this word spelled out like that is frankly disgusting. And it is actually proving more and more that Hillary's basket of deplorables comment was correct. And here she is doubling down on it, saying the tampon is so far up his ass, it's making him emotional. And continuing to defend it and everything. Here, S.J. Ayers is saying, he could have been aborted, referencing the fact that perhaps there was a test that would be available to show that he was autistic in the womb, which is not a very good test. You generally have to wait until somebody is about 2 or 3 years old before they can be diagnosed. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. The son is just a bad actor. I would like to say that I'm shocked. So this is a good one here. Rip Taylor, excuse me. Weird, just like his dad. Beta male. I don't know what this liar is over here. But yeah, you could have, she hoped that you didn't kill her like the last one. I don't even know what that's referencing. But they're tripping over themselves just to be ridiculous scumbags. And very quickly, I will display scenes of other stuff over here as I tell you guys a little bit of a story, a personal story for myself. And you can read what's being said about Robert, or what Robert Kennedy has said about Trump over here, as I'm going to try to keep this video short. So you can read it while I tell you the story. A good friend of mine, somebody that I was fairly close with back in like 08, 09, 2010 or so, would go on to have a daughter. And once the daughter was in her late twos, she had expressed to me that she was concerned with her daughter's progress in terms of speaking and reading. She was beginning to get a little bit concerned. And this would go on for a few months, and they were trying some things. And she continued not to really make the progress that she had hoped for. And at the time, I remembered seeing a infomercial on late night TV, typical hour long infomercial about a book series that could help teach just about any kid of any skill level to learn how to read, and using good tactics to get them to read closely, to read with better speed. Now, it could be your typical infomercial thing where it was not particularly true or really that effective, but at the time I remembered feeling very strongly like I should get this book series for my friend. She's struggling, and I feel her pain there. And more months would go by, and I would see this incredible outpouring of love from her and her family towards this child. She was absolutely beloved. Her nickname was Boof. They loved Boof so much. Huge, bright, happy face, lit up a room in every picture that I ever saw of her. The family felt the same way. My friend was not somebody of means, so when she began to get into some financial issues, the whole family came together, and there was a picture of groceries laid out on the bed from end to end. Whole bunches of her family came together to help her out, to continue to feed herself and her child and everything. Absolutely adored child in that family. And her husband came to discover that she was autistic. And again, the family loved her from top to bottom. Nothing changed whatsoever. They just helped my friend put in more work to live a very good life with Boof. So years would go by, and again, every picture I ever saw of her, she was always happy unless she was tired and sleepy. But this kid seemed like an absolute treasure. At about 5 years old, I think she was, no more, I don't think she was older than 6, she broke free of her parents' grasp and unfortunately ran out into the street and was hit by a car and died later that night. I can only imagine the pain that every single member of my friend's family felt because of how much they loved that child, because of how much my friend loved that child, no matter the struggles that she faced raising an autistic child, no matter how much she wanted to find ways to communicate effectively with her and to understand what she felt at any given point in time. Her and her husband were not to blame. She just sort of lurched and lunged and took off and ran out into the street. And she's no longer with us. Knowing how much she had affected my friend and my friend's family and how much they loved her and thought of her as a bright light in sometimes a very dim world, to see an attack on a child like Gus, no matter how almost adult he is, really, it pains me greatly, and I don't even want to talk to my friend about it and see what she feels about it, because the pain is still with her day to day. She has a son now. She has another child. but I know how much everybody loved Boof. And to think that she might be witnessing posts like this and see people making fun of him and how he acted in that video, knowing that her own daughter was autistic and had similar neurodivergencies, if that's even a word, to Gus, it pains me to think of what could be going through her head anytime she might see something like this. And I'm sorry to end on such a heavy note. This is absolutely a true story. This was a good friend of mine who went through this, and even though I do not consider myself particularly great with children, my father is the child lover. I'm not. I can only imagine the pain that she goes through every day, missing her daughter, and how much that pain might be augmented seeing things like this. Knowing that her daughter could have reached an age like this and have these prideful, loving, joyful, positive, emotion-based reactions, just being overcome with emotions like this, and seeing people attacking somebody like Gus Walz for this display is frankly disgusting. And as you can imagine, where I've been going through a lot of this video, maybe that stroke, that brush stroke that Hillary painted so many years ago, is not nearly as broad as people claimed it was back then, when people said it went too far and was too broad. Maybe it no longer is. And I have hope for the Harrison Walz campaign, because this kind of rhetoric needs to end. This is not who we are. This is not who we are. This is not who we are. And it needs to end. And we need to get away from this and to never have to see this language ever again. This Michelle Morrow is running for a position here in North Carolina and said she wanted a pay-per-view of watching Obama being shot by a firing squad. The whole Gitmo rhetoric on the right and firing squads and attack helicopters, it just, these are deeply disturbed people, and they should never be in any position of power, and they need to be voted out wherever they are and never be allowed to be voted in wherever they are. These things are disgusting and should immediately be disqualifying. But as you could see from Valentina Gomez, where she said everything she didn't like was weak and gay, no, it is not immediately disqualifying, because Trump has brought out the worst in the worst people and showed them that they are allowed to do that in public. And it needs to end. And perhaps the brushstroke wasn't broad enough. Thank you for watching this episode, everybody.